How could a seemingly impenetrable defensive line, painstakingly forged by a nation with a proud and storied military history, simply vanish in a puff of smoke, leaving the very heart of a continent laid bare? The prevailing narrative often suggests an overwhelming, unstoppable force, but a deeper analysis reveals a more complex and perhaps more tragic story of assumptions, oversight, and strategic brilliance. To truly comprehend this profound and calamitous vanishing, we must narrow our gaze, focusing not on decades or years, but on a mere monumentally significant week in May of 1940, centered upon a quiet French town whose name would forever resonate with the echoes of catastrophe: Sedan. Imagine Europe in that fateful spring of 1940. The air itself seemed to hum with the terrifying thrum of propellers and the distant thunder of artillery. World War II had exploded, and Germany, under the iron will of its new regime, had unleashed its terrifying new doctrine, blitzkrieg, or lightning war. The stage for a pivotal act, one that would irrevocably alter the course of human events, was set in the green, rolling landscapes of France, specifically around the ancient flow of the Meuse River and the dense, dark thicket of the Ardennes forest, cradling the unassuming town of Sedan. The French military, steeped in the traditions of the Great War, rested secure in a belief that would prove fatally flawed. They saw the rugged Ardennes, with its deep valleys and tangled woods, as an insurmountable natural barrier, utterly impassable for large armored formations. It was their natural shield, a giant thorny hedge protecting their flank, a fortress built by nature itself. This common assumption, however, overlooked a chilling paradox, a stark and terrible irony that had been laid bare years prior. Military exercises conducted as far back as 1938 had already demonstrated that these very impenetrable defenses could, in fact, crumble, could shatter under the weight of a concentrated armored assault. Yet with a stubbornness born of hubris, or perhaps sheer disbelief, the conviction of its impregnability tragically persisted, a fatal blind spot in the face of evolving warfare. Germany, under the daring and visionary leadership of generals like Heinz Guderian, the true architect of mechanized warfare, and the audacious Erwin Rommel, had a profoundly different idea. Their Fall Gelb, or yellow plan, was no blunt instrument aimed at a head-on collision. No, it was a strategic dagger, honed to a razor's edge, aimed directly at the heart of the Allied forces. While a significant, indeed the very best portion of the Allied armies, including the British Expeditionary Force and elite French units, were cunningly drawn north into Belgium, lured by the feint of a main thrust, the real, devastating blow was being meticulously prepared further south. The German strategy was audacious to the point of seeming suicidal: to smash through the supposedly impenetrable Ardennes, a feat many deemed impossible, then to bridge the formidable Meuse River at Sedan, and finally to surge westward with relentless speed, effectively cutting off and encircling the vast Allied forces entangled in Belgium and northeastern France. It was a gamble of epic proportions, and its success would redefine modern warfare. Then, between the 10th and 17th of May 1940, the impossible happened. The very fabric of military expectation was torn asunder. Despite the Meuse River presenting a formidable natural barrier, a wide, fast-flowing obstacle, and despite desperate resistance from pockets of French and Allied forces, the German army executed their audacious plan with a chilling, almost surgical efficiency. They breached the French defenses at Sedan, establishing crucial bridgeheads across the river, not just a foothold, but a gaping wound in the Allied line. Think of it not as a tiny crack in a dam, but as a colossal breach that, under immense pressure, suddenly bursts open, unleashing a raging, unstoppable torrent. The German advance was relentless, their panzers, their armored behemoths, pouring through the gap, turning the French thorny hedge into a wide-open superhighway for destruction. This was not merely a localized victory. It was a strategic triumph of such overwhelming scale that it perfectly showcased the devastating and revolutionary effectiveness of blitzkrieg. Here, in the aftermath of that cataclysmic week, is where the echoes of "what if" begin to swirl, persistent and haunting. Some historians argue with compelling evidence that the French, who actually possessed more tanks and artillery in certain areas, particularly around Sedan, could have stemmed the tide. What if French commanders had acted with more decisiveness, with the same audacious speed as their enemy? What if their coordination, tragically fractured and slow, had been ironclad, a unified fist instead of scattered fingers? Could they have sealed that initial breach, that terrible wound, or even pushed the Germans back across the Meuse River, back into the forest from which they had so improbably emerged? Military historians generally agree that a confluence of critical errors in operational deployment, forces held in reserve, units poorly positioned, communications failures, and tragically a rapid and devastating weakening of morale within the French ranks played a pivotal role in their rapid, almost unbelievable collapse. The perceived strength and the actual operational deployment of forces were, in those critical hours, two profoundly different things. The official story often focuses on German might. The underlying truth lies in French organizational and psychological fragility. The success at Sedan was not merely a battle won, it was the entire war in Western Europe irrevocably altered, fundamentally reshaped in a handful of days. The German forces, now unchecked, their path unobstructed, surged with terrifying speed towards the English Channel, achieving their audacious goal of encircling a staggering 1.7 million Allied troops. This unprecedented encirclement led directly to the miraculous yet desperate evacuation of British forces from the beaches of Dunkirk, a desperate scramble that saved an army but lost a continent. It led, ultimately, to the swift and devastating defeat of France, a nation brought to its knees in just 6 weeks. So while the idea of an impenetrable defense might offer comforting illusions of security, history, written in the shattered landscape around Sedan, showed us a different, far more brutal truth. It stands as a stark, chilling reminder that even the most formidable barriers can fall, not just to overwhelming superior force, but to innovative, audacious strategy, to relentless, precise execution, and perhaps most importantly, to the tragic absence of adaptability and the insidious erosion of spirit. The lessons of Sedan echo through time, a somber warning, reminding us that the future is rarely predetermined by grand designs alone, and that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the decisions made in a few critical moments, or the failures to make them, can ripple out across generations and reshape the very world we inhabit.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more history daily.